great. So yeah, as Ailsa says, I'm one of the founder directors, Venture North, and I'm sure some of you know all of this anyway, but I will repeat myself because there will be some people here who don't. So Highlands and Highlands had a cluster project which started back in November 2012. And what they did was they put together 12 businesses and 12 people involved in those businesses to work with Glasgow School of Arts, and we had 12 sessions over 12 months, and the idea was to come up with a collaborative project. So the people who were involved with that, as we went on through the year, what we came up with was that we felt that there was a lot going on in Caithness and Sutherland, but there wasn't one place that everybody could find all the information. So for the visitor, it was quite difficult if they were coming to visit. So there was a lot to do, but not one place. So we decided that what we wanted to do was a website. That was our ultimate aim. So Venture North Cooperative was formed in 2013. We are a voluntary board. The next slide, I'll go through who the board members are currently. And our aim then, as I said, was to do a website. We launched our website in 2014. And we had a number of people, as well as the website. We also launched our Heritage app. That took a little bit longer because there were a few hiccups. So if you haven't downloaded our Heritage app, please do so now. It's not just about heritage. You can search by area and by interest, and it's a great tool if you want to find things out. So we have postcards, so also encourage others to do it when they're visiting the area. We then launched our first Taste North Food and Drink Festival, and that was 2015. We held it in Caithness in 2015. 2016, we went to Sutherland, and then we brought it back to Caithness. And then we decided that Caithness seemed to get more visibility, so the food and drink event for Taste North would remain there. We also had our Venture North Bite events, which was, I'm not sure if any of you attended those, but we brought people up from London and from down south. The areas that we covered were how to best take photographs for social media, websites, and basically digital areas we wanted to cover. Because again, there are a lot of people in the area, and it's difficult when you're a one-man business to try and find all these things out. In 2016, we gained funding from Visit Scotland and also SSE Beatrice Fund, and we launched the Venture North Discovery Series. So those are 3 videos, and we were really, really pleased that in 2018, Visit Scotland used those on their something Tron. I can never remember what it is, but if you went to the Visit Scotland show, our video was the one that was being shown. And the videos of Caithness and Sutherland have actually been worldwide, because we would have councillors who would go abroad and they would take the videos to show in whichever country they were going to. As well as every time NDA had a visit, we would ensure that the videos were on display then. We represented Caithness and Sutherland at Visit Scotland Expo for 2017, 18 and 19. And we did also, well, 2020 was a wipeout. And in 2021, we represented Caithness and Sutherland on the online version. And the team are going to be doing that this year as well. And then that brought us to, up to that point, we were a destination marketing organization. And with COVID and the launch of the Highlands and Islands Enterprise COVID Strategy Fund, we applied for that. And we were successful. It's a huge step change for us. It took us into quite a different sphere, and we knew that we would have to recruit a team. So what I'd like to do at this moment in time is hand over to Keith Muir of Highlands and Islands Enterprise. Highlands and Islands Enterprise are the majority funder for the COVID recovery strategy, which resulted in us moving into being a destination management organisation. And as well as Highlands and Islands Enterprise, DSRL are also a funder for that. So I'll hand over to Keith now, just to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Ellie. As Ellie says, my name is Keith Muir. I'm the Head of Business Growth for the Caithness and Sutherland area for Highlands and Highlands Enterprise. And I'm delighted to be able to come along this afternoon and speak to you all about tourism. The reason we got involved in this project really was because, along with many of you, I suspect, we felt that there wasn't one single organisation who was speaking up for the whole of the area of Caithness and Sutherland. And we saw this as a great opportunity to bring forward Venture North to step up a gear and take on that responsibility. So it's not just about Caithness anymore, it's about Caithness and Sutherland, which encompasses a very different economic pattern between the two counties and different parts of the two counties. And so it's quite a difficult ask of them to pull that all together and get everybody swimming in the same direction. And I think it's fair to say that so far we've been very pleased with the results and the progress that you're making in the transition from being a purely marketing organisation to becoming more of a management organisation, destination management. A couple of wee things I would mention about our involvement. As you probably know, if you've been reading the papers, one of the two main things that we're being asked to drive forward now by the Scottish Government is the Fair Work agenda. And that's certainly going to be a challenge for a lot of tourism businesses. You're going to have to up your game in terms of paying minimum wage, no 0 hours contracts, all that kind of good stuff. And it's fair to say again that the industry as a whole has not shied away from this. They've embraced it and real progress is being made. The other area of concern, which is going to keep coming back to us, is the net zero agenda, where again, we had previously the Green Tourism Awards. I think this is all part of an ongoing trend towards becoming, as befits our beautiful natural environment, more and more emphasis being laid on the net zero agenda and making tourism as eco-friendly as possible. So that's really all I wanted to say. Just one minor point I might like to throw in, if I may, which isn't strictly tourism related. In High, we've been asked to collate and report back to Scottish Government any impacts from the war in Ukraine, which I'm sure you all will agree with me is a totally appalling situation for the 21st century. We thought we'd put that all behind us 50 years ago. Sadly, that's not the case, but if any of you or any of your contacts have any impacts from either this new sanctions regime or indeed any business connections with Russia or Belarus or Ukraine, if you could please take the time to drop me a quick line and let me know. We'll gather that all together so that we can inform Scottish Government's responses over the next few weeks, or however long it takes. So thank you for that. And I'll hand you back now to Kathy, I think is next. Thank you.
I think it's Ellie next.
Ellie, sorry, back to Ellie. My apologies.
Okay, so what I'll do at the moment, I'll go through the Venture North board. So there's myself. What I would say is that every single person on the board has always been involved in tourism, either running their own business or working with another business within tourism. We have Trudy, who is with the Caithness Chamber of Commerce, Catherine MacLeod of Thrumpster House, and also Catherine has cottages, self-catering cottages. Catherine is the chair of Venture North. We have Andrew Mackay of the Caithness Collection, the Norseman, the Castleton Hotel and the Pentland Hotel, Scott Morrison of Dunrobin Castle, Tanya Sutherland, who I can see sitting in the meeting, from Thurso Bay Holidays, and Kerry Spears from Northstone. You may think that's not a tourism organisation. Well, I'm a firm believer that Northstone would not be the success that it is if it wasn't for tourism, because we all have to rely on tourism for the indirect businesses to be successful. And also Shirley Farker of the Castle of May. So when we embarked on this journey, gosh, I can't actually remember when we started on the journey with the COVID Recovery Strategy Fund. It was quite a number of months anyway. And we started recruiting. Rachel joined us in November 2020, not as part of the COVID recovery strategy, but we decided that up to that point, all the work on the website, the Heritage app was all done by the board members. We delivered the Taste North, etc. So everything that Taste North had done up to November 2020 was all done by the board members on a voluntary basis. So the marketing side was getting a little bit too big for us. So our first employee, very successful one, as indeed all of them have been to date, was Rachel, who joined us then. And in June 2021, we took on Kirsty, who will introduce herself in a while. Kirsty came on board just in advance of Kathy, and Kathy joined us as our Destination Strategy Manager in July, the beginning of July 2021. And then Ailsa joined us on the business support and skills side in end of November 2021. So that brought us up to the full complement of team for where we are now. Our intention is to actually recruit another person as the project gets bigger. And the first thing that we did, we worked with David Gass, a consultant, to help us push forward the consultations. Some of you may have been at those consultations. And Kathy and the team have spearheaded that for the Venture North board. So what I'd like to do now is hand over to Kathy, who will take you through the successes that we have had up until to date.
Thank you, Ellie, and thank you, Keith, for your words of encouragement there. And we'll get into the meat of the session, which today, although we want to explain a lot about what we've been up to, I grew up in the Highlands, and if there is one thing I learned is that people like to get to know you a little bit to form that sort of relationship. So we've got together as a team to kind of look a little bit more at who we are out with work and what some of our history is. So all of us will be introducing ourselves in that way. And then between us, we will tell you a little bit more about the nitty-gritty of what we've actually been doing, and looking at the end really there to find out what you would like us to do more of as we go into year 2. I'm just going to cover off a couple of your little points there, actually, Keith, before we move on, and it's very pertinent to the agenda actually for Venture North about being a source of support and sharing information when it comes to their work agenda, and also the net zero agenda. So some of the team will be explaining a little bit more about that as we go along. I'm actually just out of a Highland Tourism Partnership meeting with a number of the regional destination management organisations. So yes, as Keith has said, and as all of us, I'm sure, are feeling the very sad sentiment as to what is happening in Ukraine just now. Business-wise, there is some feedback via Visit Scotland and some of the other DMOs that they are starting to see some cancellations from some of the European and international market. So if I can get any links to you for that, Keith, I'll pass them on. But again, anything else from people around the table today, that would be appreciated. So back to who I am. For those that I haven't met, Kathy Earnshaw, and as Ellie was saying, I was recruited last summer as the Destination Strategy Manager, which basically means that I lead the team and I lead the delivery of the tourism recovery strategy as a destination management organisation for Sutherland and Caithness. It is big change and a big ask. I think we've all felt that in the last 6 to 9 months, going from more a marketing focused organisation to a management focused organisation, and making sure that we are linked out there with our various communities and businesses. So a gradual build, and part of the pilot of doing the talking tourism was to actually build on how we reach out to people. So again, at the end of this, we would love more feedback to find out what's an appropriate way to link out to you. So on to the little bit more about myself. I did grow up in Thurso. I think my family moved up when I was 8. And then I studied at Thurso High School and went on to be an engineer, actually. I studied down in Edinburgh at Heriot-Watt University. You know, in those days, and we're going back a little while, we were very fortunate in this area because of the good employment that we had through Dunray, and also that filtered into the high school. So there was definitely much more of a drive in terms of the scientific and engineering type topics at the high school. So I went off to study there. I was also really fortunate, actually, that I had a role as a almost YTS trainee at Dunray before I went off to uni. So they actually gave me unpaid leave to go to university, which meant I was very lucky because I had a summer job every year I came back, which was, you know, great for the pennies. But it was also very good because I was a scientific trainee, and it really highlighted to me that I didn't fundamentally want to work with numbers and maths, and that I always wanted to be a generalist, and you know, general management was the route that I was going to go down. So when I finished at university, I decided, right, what area I'm going to go into. And again, really lucky because I've always worked in, whether it was shops, restaurants, or corporate environments, in what I would call areas that I loved. And quite frankly, I love food and drink. So I decided it would be a steady employer. And so I applied to be a malt distilling trainee with United Distillers, as it was then. So I had a great, you know, a hard but great career there for about 18 years. And I've worked in lots of, from making malt whisky out at Talisker Distillery to helping run one of the largest maltings in Europe in Birkhead. I've worked all over Scotland. And then finally, for about the last 6-7 years, I worked in more corporate, broader Scottish roles under strategic project management and capability development management as well. So on a wide range of different projects. And again, that led into areas that I do, you know, things that I really enjoy doing, which is working with lots of different groups, working with lots of different people, but at the same time, obviously, having a bit of a practical head. So I think it's been new in the team. I don't necessarily come from a marketing background. I come from a very process orientated role. So I do sometimes ask the blunt questions as to when, what, how, and how much is it going to cost. So I think overall, as a destination manager, you know, that's quite good. The most interesting part about my life, because not much of it is the fact that I was really fortunate, and I got the opportunity to follow a dream, which was always to travel the world. I'd always loved it. I wanted to do it straight after high school, but parents and your teachers were saying, well, if you go off now, you might never study. So I just had to wait till midlife, when both financially and life-wise, I wasn't saving up for family going to university, and I decided, what have I got to lose? You know, I've had a great career. I was in, you know, a fairly fortunate financial position, and I just decided that I was going to go off and, as I say, stravaig, which is a very Scottish word for wandering the world. And it was just going to be for a couple of years as a career break, but this is what led me into tourism. I started to work seasonally for Visit Scotland, and then went on to work for the Castle of May. So it really fed my Stravarian lifestyle to work hard, as to be said, for about 7-8 months of the year, and the rest of the time was my own, you know, for freedom. Then, like all of us, the pandemic hit, and so wings were clipped, and so we had to remain at home and look after our family, friends, neighbours and our community. And certainly, again, I was lucky because I was furloughed during that time, which meant I could volunteer full-time for the community support through the Thurso Development Trust. I was in a shielding household, so I got to answer all the community calls as to who needed prescriptions and shoppings, and I won't go into all the details, but it was quite a varied role in terms of the support that was needed. So I think if I've shown some of the background there, you can see why I applied for the job. Basically, I love where I live. I want where I live to be a place that people can grow up well, where they can find work, where they can find places to live, where if they do leave the area, they can come back and work, and where there's opportunities. But I'm also really lucky that I have travelled all over, and, you know, I just know outside my back door is, you know, world-class visiting opportunities. So when this came up, you know, it really was, you know, I couldn't say no to apply for this job, and that's really, you know, what I wanted to deliver. I've put in some photos. The rest of the team, we all have a bit of a laugh, just so you kind of know I do love to dance. I've missed that in the pandemic. That is me in the shadow picture, because we organised a Far North Dance Festival. So hopefully we'll be able to do more of that in the future as we come out of this pandemic. And also what I did when I came home was learned a lot more about my area, fundamentally from walking around it. So I'm a big fan of the Countryside Rangers because they've really shown different corners and different places to visit. You know, we might just drive past, you know, we just don't know what's just, you know, about 30 feet, you know, from the road to go and have a look. So on to less about me and a little bit more about what we are delivering. Thank you, Ailsa. So, Ellie alluded there, the first half of the year was a massive consultation phase, and if you were involved in that, we do apologise, as we always do, because it was in the middle of July and August, with David Gass from Rural, someone jump in there. Rural Matters, I was going to say Rural Retreats. Yes, Rural Matters. And we did manage, despite the time of year, we actually managed to get around over 130 stakeholders, key communities. We went through a lot of the community councils and the development trust, the anchor organisations, basically. And fundamentally, it was those anchor organisations that saw us through the COVID pandemic. So very much a push from the Scottish Government through, you know, High was, you know, we needed to talk to our communities, and it is about place management, not necessarily creating a destination. It's about creating what our communities need from tourism. So as well as employment, it's about that balance with communities and with our environment. And I think all of us around the table know, you know, some of the impacts from the COVID pandemic and some of the over tourism issues that we had in certain areas. It's a difficult balance. It's a very difficult balance to get. But the main thing was we were going around to speak to people to find out what they wanted to see in the future, and also what they wanted to see from Venture North, and where we could add value. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail as to, you know, the main 7 strategic aims. They're up here on the slide, and also we have it on our webpage. The reason for it, we want to stick to the nitty-gritty today and open up more of a conversation rather than a full-on strategy chat. But if you would like, and Ailsa's already put it in the chat, we have our strategy document, which we launched publicly about October. last year and got a nicer printed version there for November. That is on our website. The link is in the chat, so feel free, if you haven't already received it, to go looking at that. It's about 16 pages. At the end is that year 1 action plan. So actually that's a lot more about what I'm going to talk about, and the rest of the team is, you know, what have we been doing this last 6 months really since we published this, and more importantly, what do we hope to be doing in year 2. So the other main thing from the first 6 months, as you can see at the bottom, I'm very grateful that we managed to find Ailsa to join through the graduate placement scheme, because it was also a period of time to set us up as a remote office and to have appropriate systems. You know, we had a great volunteer board before, but we weren't set up in a sense. You know, it was like starting up a new business. So with all the work, it became clear that we needed extra resource. So Ailsa has come along in the last 2 months and really helped the team get the background office system set up. But I'll let Ailsa tell you more about the other projects that she's going to be working on now. Next slide, please, Ailsa. Again, some of the team are going to talk a little bit more about a few of these key areas. This isn't all that we've been up to, but we were just trying to pick the highlights, or the ones that would be most interested to people, to all of you who were coming along. My role is really around about that number 1 area, which was, and I think that goes back to what Keith was saying, was the aim. It was that, and that was the aim of the board way back in 2012 as well. It was about getting the voice of Caithness and Sutherland out there more, and have that representation. Basically a seat at the various tables. I have to say it can get quite confusing as to what tables you've got to get there, and I think they would say that across the whole of the tourism spectre in Scotland, so it's not just up in the Highlands. But what we are able to do more of now is be represented. And some of those groups that we are with now, like for instance, and I'll share you a bit more about the Highland Tourism Partnership, which links a lot of the other destination management organisations with Visit Scotland and Highland Council. Some of the other ones that we go along to now is the North Highlands Visitor Management Group. And again, I think with some of the issues that we have been having in some areas of the Highlands, that's been very pertinent, because if you've not come across it before, it's a mix of, well, like Venture North, the police, the rescue services, a lot of people from the Highland Council, such as Waste and Roads, and the access rangers. So not so much in the winter, we meet about once a month, but in the summer there is regular quick updates on a weekly basis. So I think one of the best things that have happened to the area has been the access rangers, which there has been funding secured for that to continue into the next season. So we're there with the access rangers, we're hearing on the ground some of the things that are going on, but most important for that group, they have ourselves, Venture North and NC 500 there. So for instance, when we were doing a winter promotional campaign, they can feed back to us and say, now Cathy, make sure you're including safe driving winter messages. Could you make sure on your web page that you have links to Police Scotland in terms of winter driving, or Nature Scot in terms of the access code? So a lot of that working together more now is making sure that we all help each other out. It doesn't take away all the problems that can occur, but it does mean there's a faster response to certain things. For instance, we all know is if we could solve, you know, toilets and bins, our job would be done. You know, if we had the money to do that, you know, I think every group would say that. But what we do know is, for instance, the access rangers are coming across an area where there's been a surge of visitors and bins are overflowing, and the waste department are hearing that, you know, quickly. they may hear it from the communities, but they'll hear it in this meeting as well, and they can, you know, where they can activate a response to that a bit quicker. So I think overall, and it's not just in the North Highlands, these visitor management groups have been set up across the piece, and it does work very well. I think going back to something, I can't remember who mentioned, it is about also having consistent messaging out there for our visitors, and that is something that we're keen to say, because a lot of our visitors are experiencing different responsible messages, do this, do that, in different areas. So what we would like to do is try and help that be a bit more consistent from a visitor's perspective. So that's some of the tables that we are sitting with, and we also regularly meet up with Visit Scotland and work with Visit Scotland and Highlands and Islands Enterprise significantly, and some of the other projects we're working on, I'll explain a little bit more about that. We've also got more involved in some of the more localised projects with various development trusts and other organisations. I've listed a couple of key ones there. For instance, developing the Far North Line through a community rail partnership. Now, I'd heard of that, as had many others, for a significant period of time, and everybody was saying what a good idea. It fits in with responsible tourism. It fits in with lots of different aspects. Some of the smaller towns along the east coast, and then also into Lairg and Argyll. You know, could we start directing more traffic, or not traffic, but more visitors to these areas? Because certainly in our consultations, these communities and their organisations were saying, we would like more visitors. We would like to develop this. But the Far North Line wasn't really getting any traction. And I'm not saying by Venture North joining in, but what we have done is we are there, we are supporting it. And actually of the last month, we now have a board of directors, which had to come from the community, but the community organisations did need to feel secure that they were going to have that support as we develop that going on. So that's new. That's taken, not new, but a new board has been formed from that. Also working with, say, for instance, the likes of the Kirsty of Sutherland Development Trust and around Go Golspie. We're looking more at promoting some of the Sutherland mountain bike trails and working with other organisations on building a cycling network. Again, these are projects that are in their infancy, or certainly in their infancy of Venture North supporting to hopefully facilitate, you know, to see more of them in the future. The other ones I will let a lot of the team talk a little bit more about. I'm going to look at a new leaflet that we're just about to distribute, and also just share some of the work that we've been doing with some of the other DMOs. So yeah, I'm just going to check there's a question there. Will I take that at the end from John?
Yeah, no, you're all good. Happy.
I'm okay, right, because I can't read it all just now. That's fine. Apologies, my age of I can't read small writing. So actually, the next one I'll go into is actually a new leaflet. Thank you very much, Ailsa. So I have mentioned that in a number of organisations. This is actually a project that started with Ellie and the board almost pre-pandemic. The pandemic delayed it, but we are delighted now to have a new leaflet for Caithness and Sutherland that has just been printed, and through the North Highland Visitor Group, through the Sutherland Sub-Tourism Group, through Visit Scotland, we're now just starting to share out there that we have these maps, and we will hopefully get them distributed as soon as possible. So looking for any input, by the way, so post this, please shout if we can get some out to you. What you'll notice from the map, and this is why we've highlighted the map section, is that we have focused more on the infrastructure around the area. So someone would be able to pick this up and say, you know, where is the next suitable, you know, toilet stop? Where can I refuel? Where can I dispose of my waste? So there's more of a focus on that in terms of the the map feature of it, but what we have done is include a QR code. So for people who want to get more tourist information, that'll link directly into our web page and also our heritage map in terms of things to see and do. So as with any maps, we've said that around, you know, they are out of date the minute they go to print. So, but this is the print for 2022. So, you know, any feedback or any changes, please let us know, and we will try and edit them for future years, and also when we get future funding for it. And then the next slide, please. Sorry, Ilse. So this is another one here. We were talking about the Highland Tourism Partnership and how we were trying to link up and work more in collaboration with our other destination management organisations, and also through Visit Scotland. So we were fortunate, or a number of the DMOs, and through the Destination and Marketing Fund from Scottish Government and through Visit Scotland, a number of us managed to get some funding. So we were able to put some of that money all together and look at a joint Highland campaign. So you may not well have seen this on your own Facebook ads and things like that, because quite frankly, you weren't necessarily the target market, but it was out to the UK staycation market. One of the fundamentals is about inspiring visits out with the main season. You know, to be fair, if you were to ask some of the communities in the West, they were saying, you know, we're full. We don't want any more in the summer period. And some communities and businesses wanted a break in the winter. But there are, you know, other places that would like more people out with the season. And this helps in terms of sustainable and responsible tourism, because it spreads visitors over a broader period of time. And then also, you know, what we'd be focusing in on is areas with the capacity to take visitors at that period of time. So I won't tell any more about it. I'll just let Ailsa play the video so you can see what it looks like. Thank you very much, and I'm going to hand over to the rest of the team. No, I'm not. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. And thank you also, Ellie, for introducing me earlier. So I'm Rachel, and as Ellie said, I joined Venture North in November of 2020. I started off part-time, and then in April of 2021, we got some more funding, so I was able to join full-time, which has been fantastic. I'm really enjoying working with Venture North and getting to know so much more about the area. So I'm the Tourism Development Coordinator, and pretty much my role as it stands is looking after the website and newsletters, lots of the social stuff, particularly in the consumer side, and some membership as well. So I live at info@Venture North. So usually if you are contacting the info, you will normally get me, and then I can send your inquiry to the right person if it's not myself. Some of the areas on the website, I mean, we are continually developing, so it's working with local groups and areas to represent and develop especially interest in the areas, so that, as we said, when visitors look to come to the area, that they can find the information there and then signposted through to further information if needed. So, for example, as we were talking about the mountain biking, signposting our visitors through to where they can get more in-depth information for those really keen bikers, especially through the developing mountain biking in Scotland. With the newsletters, again, you'll get those regular updates if you're part of our industry updates list. If you're not, then send us a wee message if you want to join that. That's normally industry news, whether it's national or local, funding, events that you might find of interest. We try to keep you up to date and kind of condense news that you might get elsewhere, but might just be kind of, there's a lot of newsletters out there. So what we try and do is condense it down to what you might find of interest in the local area. As I've said on the slide here, some of the things that I love about our local area is that it's beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. I think we have incredible history and stories here. I always loved learning about them, and the more that I am in this role, the more that I'm learning. So being able to share that with visitors and trying to kind of share it's not just what they see in front of them on the road or the bike or their feet as they go, but it's actually the people and the places that are incredible, and they can learn about that, and really want to kind of share and promote that. It is just, for me, as you can see in my little bit of some highlights down the bottom, but the outdoors up here is incredible. So when I went off to uni, I did grow up in Golspie, and I went off to uni and I went travelling, and then I came back. So I went to uni and I did a joint degree in English literature and theatre studies. I got to go abroad for a year for studying in Australia, which was lovely. And then after uni, I got to go to Japan for a year teaching English. Really enjoyed working with the young people out there. It was very different, but it was very interesting. And then I went on to work in outdoor education. So kind of the outdoors is my area of experience. It's what I love sharing with people. I think it's a great educational and leisure experience. So for me, coming back to the Highlands of Scotland was a no-brainer. I mean, there is nowhere else, I think, that you can get so much in such a condensed area. So I'm loving being back in Golspie. It's absolutely the best thing I've done. And outside of work, there's a few bits and bobs. I love to go mountain walking. I'm part of the Golspie Rowing Club. We're a fab bunch. I volunteer quite regularly with Scripture Union Scotland, who I used to work with a wee bit. Yoga in Brora, I give that a shout out because I think it's great. Looking after yourself helps you in your workplace. Whatever it is that you're doing, make sure you put time aside for your well-being. And also the Lairg and Golspie Gaelic Choir, because they are a great bunch. I love trying new things. I love learning about new things. So yeah, looking forward to connecting more with you. I think if we go on to the next slide, Ailsa, if that's all right. So I was asked to say just a wee bit about the responsible messaging, because that is obviously something that we are focused on. I'm not saying just as Venture North, but for tourism in the Highlands and across Scotland, it is becoming more and more of a, how do we encourage our tourists or our visitors to care about the places that they visit, and that's what we want to do. So when we're looking at responsible messaging, or kind of taking a holistic approach of, it's not just the do's and the don'ts, not just, you know, don't park here or don't go there. It's trying to really promote it in a positive way of encouraging an alternative for visitors. So I've taken that the road cycling one as an example. Now that did come up in the chat, so I think it's very relevant. So there's a road cycling North Coast 500 route that goes through the centre of Sutherland, takes visitors away from the busy A9 up the east coast, and it just makes it a wee bit safer for them if they're considering cycling that way. So we're not trying to say don't cycle on the A9, but it's trying to give an alternative. So if visitors who are quite conscious of road safety want to go that way, then that's actually part of feeding into that kind of responsible tourism. Again, it is going to be working with our local organisations and groups, as Kathy was saying, in particular that North Highland Visitor Management Group. So Police Scotland were asking us to encourage winter safety. Fantastic, that's something that we can do. So that post on the lovely snowy road, that's trying to, again, prepare visitors. So we're not telling visitors not to come in winter. We still want them to come in winter, but we want them to come prepared for what they might face. So what we want to do is share with our visitors the authentic reality kind of what it can be like to visit in all seasons. There's amazing benefits, and there's also things that they need to think about. So just like we all talk about the midges in summer, that's something that's part of the experience. So when we're encouraging visitors to come, it's trying to share, like, this is what it's like for us to live here. This is what you can be prepared for. And especially, like, these are things that you can do to help yourself and to help us as locals living here. And that lovely little pie chart there is just trying to share. We're starting to record some of this information now so that we can have it available for folks who are interested in knowing for our social posting what exactly it is that we're sharing. So to give you a wee idea, so the area promotion in January, that was on wildlife and seasonal visiting event. That is sharing local events. We have a calendar on our webpage, and I'll pop a link in the chat after, where you can add your own local events and we will promote them. We think that visitors like to come and experience authentic experiences, so events are part of that. The responsible tourism, that was on the winter driving side in January. Theme posts, that is things that are, so for example, the Year of Stories, this is 2022, and we want to share theme posts around that, as well as special event days, so New Year obviously came in there. Website promotion, that was on our monthly blog that we have going out on the site. We have internal posts, but we also have external posts. That road cycling one, that came from a chap who had done cycling in the north quite often, and he really wanted to share that, so that was fantastic. If you have an area that you want to talk about, the blog is a great way to share that with visitors. And the winter campaigns, that was on breathing space, which will come up in a wee bit, and promotion of We're Still Open, so trying to share with visitors businesses who are still open, and so they know that there's things that they can come and do in winter. And then the Year of Stories, again, that's just that promoting of the 2022 Year of Stories. So it's a bit of a whirlwind tour for me, but it gives you a wee an idea of who I am, and I will pass it on to the next person.
Thanks, Rachel. Hello, everyone. My name's Kirsty Mcnamara, and I'm the Strategy Project Coordinator for Venture North. As Ellie said, I actually came on in June, although some reason I've written July there, of last year. That was through the high funding that we received for the tourism recovery strategy. So my key activity is supporting the delivery of the tourism recovery strategy, working on key projects like the green recovery projects, community and business engagement, and what Rachel mentioned there, the Breathe in Space campaign, which I'll come on to. I won't focus too much on myself because I'm aware of the time there for everyone getting away when they need to. Just for Mark with Wolfburn, you'll notice there that I've got a Wolfburn t-shirt on the Blue Mountain, so I was repping it out in the Australia. So in applying for the role for Venture North, there was a few things that kind of led me to take this interest in tourism in our area. When I was younger, I was told you needed to move away to get a proper job. You know, there wasn't much opportunity here if you wanted to get a proper job. So I went to Glasgow and studied media and communications. I promise this is about to become positive, to study media and communications. And in my final year, I did a study on the impact of the North Coast 500 on businesses and communities in the area, and also the future of the North Coast 500. Within it, I really began to understand the issues that surround the Highlands and the impacts of things like depopulation and an ageing population with not a lot of young interest in staying here and investing their time here to work here and live here. This really kind of sparked my interest in understanding how much tourism was a key kind of contributor to the economy up here. So from that came an ambition to in some way help develop the region and becoming a better place to live. And as a result, you all know, if it's a good place to live, it's definitely a good place to visit. This, keen interest in tourism was strengthened by traveling in Australia. I worked there too, so it was like that juxtaposition of being a resident as well as a tourist. I compared a lot of what they had with what we have in terms of infrastructure. Something Kathy mentioned earlier, which we heard a lot of, was, the toilets issue. They definitely had really good infrastructure when it came to that. Yeah, so then I came back to Golspie because of coronavirus, which in a way was actually a blessing. I became in full-time employment after volunteering for Citizens Advice. Naively so, it made me so much more socially aware. I didn't realize how much I didn't know that was going on in our area and how much opportunity there was for people, but how much that wasn't really known about. And I really understood that being told to go away to get a proper job was the wrong thing. There is opportunity here, and it's something I'm passionate about advocating for, and also developing for young folk to, stay and invest themselves in the area. So yeah, that's a very quick whistle-stop tour of myself. I'll get Elsa to go into the next slide. So as I was just talking about, one of my key focuses is the Breathe in Space campaign. This was funded through the Destination and Sector Marketing Fund from Visit Scotland and the Scottish Government. It had a key focus on bringing back confidence after post-COVID through the winter period to the staycation market. So, you know, that domestic UK-wide audience. Another key focus of it was encouraging people to travel in the off season. This is something that was, you know, a key priority that we found from the consultation process, that people really wanted that tourism spread, you know, not necessarily higher volumes of people, but, you know, where we see that really high volume and real impact on infrastructure in the peak season, spreading that out to the shoulder months. So the Breathe in Space campaign focuses on these key themes that the fund wanted. So yeah, the aims of our Breathe in Space campaign is to promote local businesses and places to a UK-wide audience, encouraging that staycation market, promoting visitors in the shoulder months, you know, encouraging that year-round spread, as I just spoke about, but mostly encouraging immersive experiences, that place-based tourism, highlighting, you know, key parts of our offer that we have in the off-season through different themes, which I've mentioned there: discover, enjoy, adventure, and just be. These are our 4 main focuses. They kind of encapsulate all the offer that we have. Discover being heritage and culture, enjoy being the food and drink and experiences, you know, food and drink, because it's such a rich thing from all ends of the supply chain, whether it be what's on your plate or how the food is found. Adventure tourism. This is a big one because it's a developing thing in the area. We're more and more becoming an adventure destination with a lot more things to offer in this sector. So this part is about the activities and immersive experiences through all kind of inclusivity. So, you know, whether it be walking and hiking, or, you know, the more adrenaline and fueled surfing in the North Coast. Just Be is the final one. This one really kind of encapsulates what Breathe in Space was and is. Something that David Watson from the Kirsty Sutherland said was that really rang true for us was, what do we have in abundance up here? Fresh air, you know, and it's a global kind of movement of taking that moment to kind of step back and check yourself, check your mind, have a bit of wellness, a bit of mindfulness, relax and recharge. So yeah, that's I guess the key theme throughout all of them, but Just Be focuses on it. We've had a lot of activity for the Breathe in Space campaign, a lot of it planning, but the most important thing to us was that we engaged with the communities and businesses to understand that, you know, extending the season was something that they really wanted. What was the offer in the off season, and what was the interest of the businesses to participate in a campaign like this? We got a lot of positive feedback, a lot of contribution from them, whether it be comments or actual video footage from them. So the next bit was, we're in the final stages of creating 4 videos based around the 4 key themes there. Each one is about 2 to 3 minutes long, and it will showcase the region's offer through discover, enjoy, adventure, and just be. Each of these will be paired with itineraries. So the itineraries will be on our website, they'll be downloadable, and they'll cover not just what's in the videos, but also, you know, a broader range of things around each area. Although there'll only be 4 videos, there'll also be sub videos, which I'm actually going to show you a teaser of in the next slide. But some more activity that we've been up to is we've recently launched our paid advertising campaign for this. It's kind of to drip feed the idea of Breathe in Space, get a little bit of traction around it, a little bit of interest, drive traffic to the content and the information. What's good that's come of this is that we've already had nearly 1 million impressions from it, with 12,000 click-throughs, which has been really positive for us. It's driving that interest into the campaign, making sure that the businesses and the communities are seen within it, and we're really hopeful for the next steps as the videos become finished. We've also engaged for PR activity. I just want to show you I'm going to move on to the next slide to show you the video. And it's just a 30-second clip, so it's not one of the main big videos, but it really kind of showcases what we've got to offer as a region. So I'll let Elsa play that. So as you'll see, we have an abundance of things to do in the off season, and I know I've just rattled through that very quickly. So I hope that the slides will be available for you guys afterwards, so that you can go through that. And if you have any questions, just to get back to me. But yeah, as we finalize the videos, I hope that you all see them and like them, share them. It's a thing we're very proud of, the Breathing Space campaign, and it's probably one of our biggest projects at the moment that we've been focusing on. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that video, but I'll pass you over to Elsa because I am very conscious of the time.
My apologies there, the videos like to double play when I click next. But nice to meet you all. My name's Elsa, as Kirsty was just saying, and I'm the Business Support and Skills Development graduate here at Venture North. And I joined in November last year, so I've been with the team sort of for about like 4-ish months now. So I grew up just outside Aberdeen, and then I went off to Strathclyde University to study history and politics, because at one point I thought that was something I would be interested in. I quickly realised that wasn't sort of where I wanted to go. But at the time I was spending a lot of the summer seasons working as a tour guide in a local castle just outside my village. And that was sort of where I sort of got this interest in tourism from. Day to day speaking to tourists, sharing places in my local area that I liked going, and sort of hearing about all the different stories of things that people had done in the local area as well. That really got me interested in tourism. Then in 2019, I got the opportunity to study abroad at the University of Otago in New Zealand. And as part of this, I also spent a few months traveling Southeast Asia to Indonesia and Vietnam. And again, like a lot of the other members of the team, that traveling abroad and then coming back to Scotland was really what sort of pushed me to then pursue like a career in tourism. So when I came back, I finished my undergrad and then went straight into my master's in tourism marketing management. And as part of that, I did my dissertation on the impact of the North Coast 500 on local residents, where I interviewed businesses and communities across the region. Sort of again, looking exactly as it says, sort of how the North Coast had impacted them sort of economically, environmentally and socially. And I think going into this role, that's something that I was very passionate about when I joined, was sort of looking at that, making destinations sustainable, particularly for local residents, because that was the focus of what I'd done. And speaking to everyone that I spoke to during the interviews I did for my dissertation, really made me want to go into a role in tourism that sort of was considering its social impact on those that live in the destination. So since I've been at Venture North, obviously a big part of it has been organising these talking tourism events, and that's going to link into the skills development work that I'm hopefully going to go into in the next half of my graduate placement here at Venture North. And as Kathy was also saying, I've also been involved in a lot of the business support, so sort of setting up the day-to-day sort of processes of the team here, supporting the work from home team, and making sure we're an efficient and collaborative team here at Venture North. And alongside that, I've also been working with Kerry Spears, who Ellie introduced you to at the beginning, another one of the board members working on the marketing and communication strategy. So that's everything I've sort of been up to. Outside of work, again, very similar to other people, interested in sort of travel, outdoors, which again suits very well to Caithness and Sutherland. You can see behind me, that was taken just when I was up. I actually can't remember where I took that, but it's looking onto Sealavan, taken when I was hiking last summer. And some other interests, sort of like rugby and horse riding as well. So I'll just move on give you back to Kathy, who's going to look at sort of year 2 planning and some of our core activities going into next year.
Thank you so much, everybody. one, I just want to say thank you very much to the team for pulling that all together. I've really enjoyed doing that to find out a little bit more about ourselves. We are working in lots of different locations and we are a new team. So I am especially proud that actually we all work very well together. Maybe that's because we're all in remote offices, but there is actually some real sense of team camaraderie around the place, and all of them, including myself, are there to help. So if you need to pick up the phone or get in touch, please do. I am very conscious that we're overrunning time. And I hold up my hands. All that strategy, I took too long on that, and the rest of the team have had to rush through. So without further ado, I'm probably going to rush through the next slide because we would like to open it up more to conversations. But as Kirsty was saying, all of these will be available. We can send them on to you. There's a lot of information has gone into the chat. So again, just get back to us about more. March, although in a sense we've only had about 6 months with our current plan, this is us coming to the end of our official year. So it won't come as much as a surprise to say that the kind of key actions and key areas that we're focused on is very much more of what we're already doing. But now that we're a few more months in, we're able to take some of the team members to focus more in the areas of green recovery, where Kirsty will be working on some of the key. I noticed there's a keen cyclist in the group here, so we are linked in there as well, and also things around about the other forms of transport, linking up with the Net Zero, Zero Waste Scotland. And in terms of the skills and development, that's an area that Ailsa is going to be working more on. So we're at the early stages of building those engagements with University of the Highlands and Islands, Business Gateway. As we figure out our role as a support service to the tourism sector in the Highlands, as we signpost or we facilitate things to happen. We'll definitely be promoting the next a couple more of our Talking Tourism in March, because we've got more on those topics to find out more at the next 2 sessions. One of the key things that we don't have in the area is actually some solid data for just Caithness and Sutherland, and that's been a big push as we've tried to find a solution. We're not the only ones of DMOs. It's fundamentally it's Highland information that we've been gathering via, like, say, Highland Council and Visit Scotland, but we really do need to have a different model so we can look at our, Sutherland and Caithness data and how that compares. But obviously, Highland-wise, data is highly skewed by Inverness, Isle of Skye. So that's another area we'll be working more on. We'll also be representing the area in April at Discover Scotland Reconnect, and about sharing our love and information about the area to the travel trade. Again, this will be an online, not the same as Expo, but we do hope in the future that we are able to be there like the board of directors were before us, standing there linked up and collaborating with the other organisations in the area to promote Sutherland and Caithness there. I've rushed through that because I actually do want to get onto some key questions, and that last one there is coming back to that. How do we become a better joint voice for Caithness and Sutherland? How do we link up? And in some of the applications we talked about, how do we look at an area tourism partnership, and what's the way to go about that? So if we will probably carry on for another 5 minutes or so we can answer some of your questions. I don't want to keep people here any longer than they need. But after this, we will be sharing, I think, and I'll leave Ailsa to this, it's a Jamboard where you can put up flip notes or chat, because some of these questions we would love to hear a little bit more from yourselves as to what an area network, a tourism network would look like to you, and how that would work across such a broad region of Caithness and Sutherland, because we are really quite a large land mass. So I think we'll go on to that question area. Yeah. So, conscious there's been a few questions in the chat. Ailsa, do you want to?
Yeah, no, we got a couple of comments in the chat just from John Murray about who does what support, etc. It'd be interesting to see, just talking about like Venture North Coast 500, Highland Tourism Partnership, Highland Tourism, Visit Scotland, sort of just about the complicated landscape that as you were speaking about at the beginning of the tourism sector.
Yeah, and I totally agree with John there, as in it's a very complicated landscape, and certainly we are still finding our feet and making sure we're connecting with as many of those organisations as we can. So as a representative voice, in a sense, regionally, and then a focus more, our ambition is to be more, nationally represented as a region. But yeah, totally agree. Very complicated.
We've also got one from Ryan Davidson about ecotourism. Driving ecotourism traffic through Lerwick / Altnahara could be hugely beneficial through cycling. I'm pushing massively to bring clients through that way. The downfall is that they are missing the glorious East Coast, but safety is paramount. Would be good to hear more about your cycling ideas on point 3. I think that was back at the year 1 activities. Yeah,
I'm happy to answer part of that. Kirsty, do you want to answer any of that, or?
To do with how we're working with, we're working with Mountain Bike Scotland at the moment, kind of looking at how that feeds into adventure tourism, what the offer is here, because the mountain biking here kind of feeds into other things rather than being a sole product by itself. But also we're working with oh, now the name's Sustrans on the route that was declassified from the national cycle route. We're working with them on the new promotion of the route from Tain North up through the middle. So working alongside them on that too, which has been very interesting for me because I haven't actually kind of looked into that before. So learning about that has been very good, and being a part of the new brand and feeding into that has been very interesting too.
And actually, Ryan, we will hopefully share a little bit more on the cycling in the next couple of months, actually. But we are definitely with David and the Kirsty of Sutherland Development Trust looking at the road cycling as well, and trying to get those things more linked up. As to what it's going to look like next year would be hard for us to answer that question, but please get in